25, breaks a couple of tackles, and look at him go! He could go all the way! Touchdown!
Winning is not a sometimes. It's an always. Winning is a habit.
What's up, sports fans? Welcome back to another episode of Gut Check Podcast. We are up bright and early, ready to talk some football. With me, as always, good friend and co-host Seth Floyd Hansen. How you doing this morning, man?
Sleepy and red from being out on the lake all day yesterday, but it was a nice little getaway. So yeah, but I'm red. I need to wear more sunscreen. I'm gonna tell you right now, no amount of tan that you think you're gonna get could ever be worth getting a really bad sunburn. It's just the worst. Just wear it, be white if you're white, and just enjoy it, because sunburns are terrible.
You think you would have learned something growing up in San Diego, right?
I know. Well, in San Diego, you just had to push through like the first sunburn or two, and then after that, you were just golden brown. It was amazing the rest of summer, but it's not. I don't get outside enough here, so just can't.
Yeah, because if you step outside Texas in the summer for a minute, you fried. So
yeah, you look like the Wicked Witch of the West. So
something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, guys, we are up, just ready to talk AFC South today. Moving back to the AFC, and I think this division is going to be pretty exciting. Had a lot of movement, a lot of trades, and like big offseason moves, really for all these teams. And I think you have three potential playoff teams in this division if everyone plays up to their caliber. So just starting with the Lions, starting with the team with the lowest wins projected. You got Jacksonville Jaguars with an over-under of 4.5 wins. They got rid of Nick Foles, trading him off to Chicago. So it looks like it's the Gardner Minshew show through and through. He wasn't the offensive rookie of the year, but I mean, if you look at his numbers, some people could argue that he had a pretty good rookie year. Definitely good for a late pickup in the 2019 draft. So how are you feeling about the Jaguars?
How do I feel about them? Like as a non-Jaguars fan, like they're not going to be good. And I don't think I'm as high on Gardner Minshew as a lot of people. I think a lot of people are high on him because they love his personality and like what he portrays, and just he's a fun guy to be around, obviously, probably a really good locker room guy, and that's all great, but I'm not super high on him as a quarterback, and part of that is because he doesn't have much around him. They're trying to trade Leonard Fournette. That doesn't look like it's going to happen, but he knows they were trying to trade him. So I don't know. I think it's going to be a rough season for the Jags. If I'm the Jags, like, there are things to be optimistic about. Sure, like maybe you do believe in Gardner Minshew. Starting over can be refreshing, though. It's disappointing for him because they were just in the AFC Championship 3 or 4 years ago. I think at 4.5, I probably would take the under because of how good the division is going to be. I don't see them winning a division game, just to be honest, and that could be like wrong because division games are always weird. But I think this division, as we just were talking about, is probably like the most competitive division in the league. And what I mean by that is like, I don't think any of those three other teams are going to win the Super Bowl or be considered Super Bowl contenders, really. But all three of them, like, you could, at the end of the year, you could tell me any one of those three won the division, and I wouldn't be surprised. Like, this is like the hardest division to predict how it's going to play out. And for that reason, I think it's going to be really hard for the Jags to win more than 4 games, and they might win a division game, but I think that's going to be hard too because these teams have so much to play for, because all of them believe they can win the division, So I would probably take the under. I think it'll be 4 wins, though. I think 4 is the sweet spot for the Jags.
Yeah. So they were 6-10 last year, and I think their defense is going to be better. I think that was the big kind of downfall last year. C.J. Henderson was a good pickup. Clavon Chason as well out of LSU. I think they got some good pieces. If those rookies can step up, I think they'll be probably about the same as last year. So they were 6-10 last year. So I'm going to pick the over at 4.5. I actually do like what Minshew did, and I think Jay Gruden actually coming in as offensive coordinator. He was a pretty good coordinator from his days in Cincinnati, and even what he did with offense in Washington. He's not a head coach caliber guy per se, but I think he can, if he can connect with Gardner Minshew, I think they could put up pretty good numbers with offense. Definitely the red flag and what's so difficult is what they're going to do with Leonard Fournette. You don't want any sort of dysfunction on your team. You also have the D lineman in Goku, who you're trying to get rid of as well. I think I just butchered his last name, but
he's like tweeting the owner's son, and talking about how bad of a person he is. I don't know. There's some dysfunction over there.
The dysfunction definitely worries me. And the Jaguars aren't a team that you can be like, oh, they can handle dysfunction. They'll figure it out. No worries. No, you need to figure that out. And especially with two of your best players, whatever you want to do with Fournette, pay him, not pay him, I get it, but you got to move on or just get him on board right away. Same with your D lineman. That's a lot of talent that you're just going to have a disruption when you're trying to build something new in that team. So that worries me a little bit, and that could definitely tank their season and drop them under 4. But I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt from what I see on paper. And, between 5 and 6 wins, I still think they're coming in last, but I think they should be around the same as they were last year. So the official, I'll go 5-11. So I'll take the slight over on this one.
So, in the NFL, the truth is because you have a bunch of players that are all professionals. We know how hard to win 12 games or more, is really hard, no matter how good your team is. It's the same to lose to only win 4 or less games is also really difficult. Again, Jim Tom Sula for the Niners, he lucked into 5 wins his year, and he's not a head coach, but they just lucked into 5 wins. So they could. I would think anywhere from 4 to 6 wins is where they're going to be. The deal with Fournette, you're not going to pay the guy. You're not going to pay him. That's very obvious. Your best bet with Fournette this year is you sit him down. You say, look, we're not going to pay you, okay? But we're gonna give you every opportunity to earn a huge contract next year because you're going to be a huge feature on our offense. Because I'm not gonna just hand the reins to Gardner Minshew and let him throw it 50 times a game. And if I'm the Jags, I'm gonna get the most out of Fournette in my last season to try and do some damage control.
Yeah.
And you don't want this to get real ugly, so I'd give him 300 touches this year because he's not coming back next year. So what's the point of preserving him, right? I would just ride him. I would limit, Minshew as much as I can, and slowly give him more and more responsibility each week. But that's their best bet. But Fournette's got to be upset. He's gonna be like, man, I'm on a crappy team that tried to trade me. They don't even want me here. So what am I doing?
Yeah. And the crazy thing is so you have within the division everything that the Jaguars wanted Fournette to be, and that's Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry is a better version of Leonard Fournette, that they saw Leonard Fournette coming out of college. He's going to be a big bruiser we can give the ball to 300 times in a season, and he can just carry to victory. We don't need a step to do everything, and he's never lived up to that. The other thing, just a throwback to our very first podcast where we did the draft. I wanted the Jags to pick up CMC, Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah.
And man, just imagine if they still had him to kind of build around. I think people would be feeling a little bit better about the Jaguars.
Yeah.
Because if you have CMC, you're not trying to trade him. There's no dysfunction there. Yeah. You're probably still the same, mediocre team, but I think you have a little more hope.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and just because of CMC's versatility and what you can do on offense with him, yeah. And good for him, man. CMC's been so disrespected in his career. Going back to college, how he didn't win the Heisman Trophy is criminal. It's a bad deal because he he's unbelievable, and I'm happy he got paid. And we're not real high on the Panthers this year, but I hope good things are coming his way because he's the real deal.
Yeah. I think you disrespected him a little bit, saying you could bench 225 more than he could.
I was disappointed in his bench press. I remember that, but obviously, what do I know? So it didn't matter.
Not quite.
Yeah.
All right, so Jaguars finishing at the bottom there. The next team with the lowest wins is the Houston Texans. They're reigning AFC South champions at 7.5 wins. So coming off a 10-6 season, now they're over-unders at 7.5. Obviously, people are thinking DeAndre Hopkins is worth about 3 wins a season. So how do you feel about it?
Yeah, I don't know if it's DeAndre Hopkins. I think it's more about Bill O'Brien, just because of his and what a lot of people will say is like, Bill O'Brien's a terrible GM, but he's a good coach. How good, I don't know. I mean, they're just like a staple to be in the playoffs every year, it feels like, but they're never a threat. No one ever really takes them serious. And so I feel like they're going to win more than 7. And we touched on it before, and you brought it up. Like, all 3 of these teams have a chance to make the playoffs, and all 3 of them could make it this year, especially with that extra playoff spot. But out of the 3 that are left with the Texans, the Titans, and the Colts, I kind of feel like the Texans are the odd man out. And I know that's crazy because they have the best quarterback, and they've had the most stability. But like, things have gotten weird this offseason because of Bill O'Brien with trading DeAndre Hopkins. They traded for Brandon Cooks, which is not a good trade. It's not. With his injury history, like, he's just not going to be on the field. I don't expect him to be on the field for, like, I feel like 10 games is the most he's going to be on the field this year. And they're not going to have an offseason to where he can blend and gel with Deshaun Watson. So I just don't feel like that trade did much for you. Now, the one thing that really could push the Texans over the top, something that they've been missing, is like a good run game. They haven't really been able to run the ball that well since Arian Foster, in his prime. And I think that the David Johnson trade, like, I get that the trade was probably unequal because of how much DeAndre Hopkins brings to the table. But I think people are undervaluing David Johnson. I think that for whatever reason, he wasn't a fit in Cliff Kingsbury's system. He really liked Kenyon Drake, who they traded for. And I think David Johnson, with a new scene and a fresher body, I mean, he didn't have that many carries last year. Like, he is going to have an opportunity to kind of resurrect his career. And I think he's got a lot left in the tank. And so I think that could, if he really does come close to anything he was in his prime in Arizona, like, you could see the Texans win the division. But I wouldn't say I'm banking on it, but it's something I'm watching this year because I'm excited about it. But I think with Bill O'Brien's, just like his dysfunction, he doesn't seem like a liked guy. Like, even Deshaun Watson doesn't seem happy there. After Hopkins was traded, Watson was kind of tweeting out some cryptic things about being unhappy. And so that's just never a sign of winning. Like, that doesn't usually lead to a lot of wins. So I will take the over, but I don't think they're going to win the division. I think they probably finish 3rd in the division at 9-7. I don't think they're going to be 8-8. Like, I think they're with Deshaun Watson, I think they're going to be a 9-7 team as their floor.
Yeah. So I think I'll say right out, I agree with you at 9-7. I think that sounds about right. So I'll take the over too. I give the benefit of the doubt, like you said, to Deshaun Watson. I think he's going to be able to create. I do think they're shoring up their offensive line, which is going to help him. But yeah, man, that receiving core is just such an oddball now. I mean, you don't have this like true number one. You have Will Fuller, who's a deep threat when healthy. You have Brandon Cooks, who can play all over the field when healthy. You have Randall Cobb, who also can play all over the field when healthy.
20 years ago.
Yeah. And then Kenny Stills. again, like can play all over, deep threat, and he's really the only one who's shown some health stability. I think he's only
Consistently on the
missed,
field.
yeah, he's only missed 3 games in his career. There's also a lot of talk that the Texans may trade him or get rid of him. You know, the one idea that people like was him going to the Packers, but with all the injury history that the Texans have, you probably need Kenny Stills on your team to be that asset. And then the other thing, right, like I think Bill O'Brien just really wants a number 1 running back in the league. I don't know what it is, but I think in his mind, in his offense, he just thinks I need the best running game in the league. Otherwise, I'm not going to do well. That's why, you know, he loved Arian Foster. They made the big trade for Lamar Miller. That didn't really pan out. Now he makes a big trade for David Johnson, which in no way can actually just make perfect sense in anyone's mind unless you think I'm never going to be successful unless I have a number 1 running back. And like I get it. Yeah, David Johnson's probably been undervalued and underestimated a little bit, but he also just had one really good year. And then he's been injury prone and, you know, maybe didn't fit into the system, whatever, but it's not this big track record, you know, to go off of. And that's a big trade for just, you know, a running back.
What makes the trade so questionable is one, David Johnson's contract. Like that's a lot of money for a running back.
Like $10 million a year. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one of the things. It wasn't like if he'd been $5 million a year, like you'd be a little more understanding. Also, Brandon Cook's contract, which I don't have the numbers on, but I know the Rams paid him a lot of money. So you gave up a second rounder and you're paying money to this guy who can't. Oh my gosh, excuse me. Who can't? Early morning hiccups. Can't stay on the field. But I agree with you. I think that's a very real mindset that Bill O'Brien probably has. Texans need a GM real bad because like he's just getting spread too thin. I don't think he's good at it, and I think he's a decent enough coach. But man, if they don't make the playoffs this year, like you gotta think he's on the hot seat a little bit. I know that they've consistently been in the playoffs, and that's going to buy you some time. And he's been there for a while, but I think that's more of a result of the division. You know, like Luck hasn't played. Obviously, he's retired now, but then he didn't play for a while because of injury. You know, the Titans were kind of just middle of the road, and then the Jacksonville had that one good year, but really they just by default, like they've just had enough talent to consistently win the division. So
they had a quarterback, pretty much.
And like. I mean, I'm not saying Bill O'Brien's a bad coach, but I'm not ready to anoint him as a guy who should always have job security. So,
yeah, what also just shocks me the most is in the playoffs, right? They had a 21-point lead on the Kansas City Chiefs. And I'm not even just trying to point out like that's a choke job. I'm just saying they had a chance to go to the AFC Championship.
Sure.
And they were close, right? So why are you trying to make a lot of changes? You know, like that's shot. Just run it back. You know what I mean? You know, maybe just look at your weakest point and try to make some adjustments there. You know, and that's the defensive side of the ball. They have one of the worst pass defenses ever. But it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I don't know that I can get over the DeAndre Hopkins trade. I mean, 62% of his targets came from non-starting caliber quarterbacks.
Yeah.
So over half of his targets, and he's been a top 5 wide receiver with people thrown to him that aren't even in the top 32 of the league at that time. I mean, that's crazy to think about.
The last thing I can think is maybe Bill thinks his offense is sputtering because the offense sputtered last year at times. I mean, they might have had some good games as well, but I'm just telling you from a fantasy football perspective, I had both Deshaun Watson and Hopkins thinking I'm going to take over the league and go undefeated, and they had more disappointing games than good games. And my only thought is maybe Bill thinks that Deshaun was just trying to force feed DeAndre the ball, and it was limiting their offense. And maybe he just thought, look, if I trade him away, Deshaun will be forced to spread it around, which is how my offense is supposed to work. I don't know if that's true, but that's like one thought process maybe Bill had. The last thing, I just said last thing, but this came to mind too that I was reading about is people were saying like, look, you can knock this trade, but the truth is
Okay,
like,
I will.
is it concerning at all that it sounded like Bill had shopped DeAndre around
Mhm.
and they couldn't find a better offer, is what they're saying. People were trying to report and say like, look, you can knock Bill, but it wasn't like he just got this offer and jumped on it. Like he
Mhm.
shopped him around, and this literally was the best offer. So maybe there's something Bill and the Texans know about DeAndre that the rest don't. Whether it's declining play, maybe he's losing a step, something like that.
Mm.
And my guess is you're going to look back at this trade and you're going to say, all right, the Cardinals won this trade. But if DeAndre has a terrible year this year and David Johnson just rushes for 1,000 yards, not even like a top 5 back, he just rushes for 1,000 yards, people might say like, oh, maybe this wasn't as bad of a trade as we thought. I don't know. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, obviously something could change and it could work out, and maybe David Johnson's the perfect fit for his system, and yeah, he turns into maybe just a 1,500 all-purpose yard type of guy, and that's a great fit. But no, I think you solved it, man. I think Bill O'Brien's a fantasy football player.
Yeah.
And he's like, dude, I'm tired of always drafting my own players.
Yeah.
And they suck for me. So
yeah. No,
that makes sense.
I think you're right, and if that's the case, then you did the right thing, Bill, because this is ridiculous. What if Bill meant to trade Deshaun in fantasy, and he accidentally went to the actual trade login page, and he was like, oh, frick, what did I do?
Because that's how NFL trades work. It's all online.
You don't know that they don't. What do any of us know?
I don't.
The NFL coaching tree, it's like the Illuminati, dude. That brotherhood, we don't know anything about it. So,
dude, there's our title for the episode. NFL equals Illuminati. Dude, that'll get some clicks, man.
Not clickbait. I mean, you explained to me how Jeff Fisher kept a job for so long. It has to be the Illuminati.
And why Marty Schottenheimer got fired after a 14-2 season.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
It writes itself.
It does.
All right. God. Thankfully, we're not sponsored at all, because nobody would ever want us sponsored. And for the record, I don't even know. It's not the Illuminati, all right? I want to work in the NFL. But if it is, maybe what do I got to do?
We can get on board with that, too. I'm not going to say it. It's a real thing.
No judgments here. All right. We need to go back to bed. All right. Next team coming in on the over-unders here. Well, the next two are tied, so we'll go with the Tennessee Titans next. 8.5 is their over/under. 9-7 wild card team. Obviously, just shocked a lot of people, not only in being able to move on from Marcus Mariota to Ryan Tannehill, and basically run the table the back half of the season, beat the Patriots in New England, and then make it to the AFC Championship game and have a great game against Kansas City as well. So Tennessee Titans 8-5, and now they were 9-7 last year. So do you think they repeat?
Well, the other thing, they going to Foxborough winning, then going to Baltimore and taking it to them, and then really playing the Chiefs tough. So I'm pretty high on the Colts as well, along with the Titans. Mm-hmm. And this is like, I've had to go back and forth, but I think I would go with the Titans to win the division. And I'm gonna do that because they play good defense and they run the football. And those are the two most kind of consistent things. I don't think Tannehill has to perform as well as he did last year. I think he needs to be close to what he was, but I don't think that he has to be averaging 275 yards a game with 3 touchdowns. Like, they're going to force feed Derrick Henry the ball as they should. They're going to control the clock and play defense. And if you can just get something from Tannehill, as long as he can consistently play better than Mariota did, like he did the last half of the season, as long as he consistently has like a 2-to-1 interception ratio, TD to interception ratio, I like them to win 10 games, possibly 11 games, and win the division. But that's why it's so tough, because I think the Colts are probably going to win 10 games also, and it might be a deal where they both finish 10-6, but one gets the tiebreaker somehow. But I just the defense. There's a lot of rumor that they're going to sign Jadeveon Clowney, which they've at least been in on, which would be a great. Like I'm all for that for Tennessee. I think that would be a great pickup. I like Mike Vrabel as a head coach. Like you take a 9-7 team and go win those 2 playoff games, like you've got definite respect in my eyes. And I'd love to. I mean, they've got AJ Brown. They just got a lot of good under the radar pieces. The wild card for sure, just like with Indianapolis as well, who we'll talk about in a second, is the quarterback play. You know, how much do you believe in Tannehill? And I don't know. Like I think he's going to be fine. I don't think he's going to be MVP caliber type of quarterback, but I think he's going to get the job done. And it helps that you have Derrick Henry. But you're gonna run the clock and play defense. You're gonna control the clock and play defense, and that's a recipe for at least being in the game every single game and having a chance to win if you're effective at both of those. So I'm taking the over, and I think they're like a 10-6 team.
Yeah, I'll go over, and I think they're 10-6 as well. And mostly because I don't think the Colts are going to be able to put it all together with the shortened off season and new quarterback, new wide receivers, all that kind of stuff, and we'll get to them in a second. So yeah, I'm going to go with the team that's stable here. They brought back their running back, their quarterback, the coaches. You know, they have a new right tackle in Isaiah Wilson, so a little concern there maybe, but it's still a solid offensive line. Yeah, like you said, they're going to run the ball and play good defense. Now, can Derrick Henry reproduce what he did last year? You know, I don't know, but he's certainly a beast. And I don't know if he wants to slow down. He's on a franchise tag, so maybe he's going to play hard so he can get a good contract. You know, he's still going to be fighting for his money. But yeah, I think Tannehill was a pretty solid quarterback in Miami. He didn't do great things, but he never had a great team around him either. When he was healthy, he was able to take a pretty mediocre Miami team to the playoffs.
Right.
Actually, yeah, he got hurt that season.
He got hurt, so he didn't
right
at
the end.
Yeah.
But either way, you know, he's done some good things. He's kind of the like Alex Smith type quarterback, I guess, if you will. Alex Smith probably has a higher ceiling than Tannehill, but it's that same, you know, play action, timing quarterback. He can roll out, he can run a little bit, and everything shows that he's a competitor. So he wants to play and he wants to win and compete. And I think that's what Mike Vrabel wants on that team. So yeah, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt with a stable core, a lot of pieces coming back. I think they'll go 10-6. And so, you know, it's tough to say, man, but I think I'm gonna pick them to win the division because of the Texans' sort of disarray right now. And then, you know, I like what the Colts have done. I just don't know if it's going to be enough for them to win a division in such a weird year and such a weird season.
Yeah. I think the key for the Titans, too, along with Tannehill's play, is I think he needs to run.
Yeah.
I think he needs to, and they need to, as a coaching staff, they need to encourage him, like don't force things. I'd rather see you try and get out of the pocket and make something happen with your legs a little bit, because he's a good athlete. Wasn't he a wide receiver at A&M for a couple of years before
turning quarterback?
Yeah, so he's definitely a good athlete. So that's what I'd like to see from Tannehill. Like the year the Jaguars went to the AFC Championship, was a big part of it was because Bortles started running a bunch, and that became a sneaky threat that really helped the offense. And so I'd like to see that from Tannehill. I won't lie, out of all the divisions in the NFL, I probably watched less AFC South games than any other division. Yeah. But this year, I'll probably keep an eye on them. I don't think any of these teams are probably Super Bowl contenders. I mean, the Titans could get hot again if their defense is playing really good, but I think that all three of these teams, for sure, you know, could be there, and you know, then it makes it at least interesting to watch.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting just to see. I think we can move on to the Colts here. Just what's going to happen with that quarterback room. Obviously, you bring in Phillip Rivers on a 2-year contract, I believe it was, right? You still have Jacoby Brissett, and then you drafted Jacob Eason as well. you have, 3 starting potential quarterbacks. Do you try to trade one? Most likely Brissett, or do you keep him on as a good backup? And then what are you going to get out of Phillip Rivers? Obviously, you want him to go back to that sort of Hall of Fame caliber gunslinger that he can be. And he's going to be behind the best offensive line he's ever been behind in his career. So I think that helps. But he had some really good weapons on the offense in Los Angeles. I almost said San Diego. And now he's coming to a little bit more unproven offense. Jonathan Taylor, rookie, could be great, or Marlon Mack, pretty solid running backs there. T.Y. Hilton, obviously, when healthy, is a starting caliber number 1 wide receiver. But then you have Michael Pittman Jr., rookie, coming in. Zach Pascal, who it's his second year. He had some plays in his rookie season, but didn't do a whole lot per se. So, yeah, I mean, what are you going to get out of Phillip Rivers? That's my concern there, and so that's where I have him at like 9-7.
Well, so I think the Colts defensively are a solid team. They just added DeForest Buckner, who is going to give you 900 snaps in a season and just be stable, and he's gonna shore up that defensive line. Offensively, I loved the Jonathan Taylor pick. I loved the Michael Pittman pick. And I think that you're gonna need to rely on Marlon Mack and Jonathan Taylor a lot, because you just can't expect Phillip Rivers to come out and be what he was in his prime. You need him to be better than he was last year. And it's discouraging because you're right. The Chargers had a lot of good pieces on offense, and for whatever reason, it just was not great for Phil. Now, hopefully Phil looks at last year, looks at the things he did wrong. Last year, Phil looked like a guy who was, the way he was playing was like he thought his body was 5 years younger than it was. And he throws that he was making, he would have made 5 years before and fitted in that window, and it would have been a touchdown, were interceptions last year because he doesn't have as much zip on the ball, type of thing. And so if he can just recalibrate and make the adjustment from that standpoint, I think that he can be effective. But I would lean on the run game, and then as you get closer to the red zone, you look for Michael Pittman. You get T.Y. Hilton involved in the game plan. I think that they're going to be good, and I feel like they're going to finish ahead of the Texans. Whether that's 9-7, the same record, or 10-6, just barely missing out. Like, I think that's where they're going to be, because they have better pieces outside of the quarterback. And I like their coach. I like what they've been able to do. It sucks that, Jacoby Brissett got hurt last year. I know you're a Jacoby Brissett guy. So I think that they have a chance to make a run, especially at the wild card. Like, I think that this is going to be a fun team to watch. I don't think they're a Super Bowl contender without luck. But I think that they'll be an interesting team to watch going forward.
Yeah, and that's just my concern, like what you said. If you need Phillip Rivers to recalibrate, when is he doing that? Is he doing that on his own, running through drills or whatever during quarantine? Like that counts for something, sure, but, you need him to get out there with Frank Reich in his system, with Michael Pittman Jr., with T.Y. Hilton, Jonathan Taylor, Marlon Mack, like with those guys running routes and getting on the same page. And I mean, we'll see. We haven't even gotten to when the training camp would start yet. So without OTAs, I think they're going to be fine. But let's see what training camp will look like. And I may be getting ahead of myself if I think it's a wash already.
I just think when I say recalibrate, I think it's just his decision making. Like, he just needs to take a much more conservative approach. And if you're going to be able to run the ball, which I imagine they will, and I imagine they plan on Jonathan Taylor, if not in the first, like, he might not for the first 4 or 5 weeks, but they're eventually going to make him kind of a workhorse. Like, if you can set up some play action, some layup throws for Phil, like, that's the way to go about this. Don't have him consistently lining up 4 and 5 receivers and have him trying to read the whole field. Like, try and set up some play action and make things easy. But for Phil, like, he just needs to be a little more conservative. And he, to be fair, like he throws to the running back a lot, which implies like he checks it down a bunch. The problem is some of the times where if he's not throwing to the running back, then he's trying to push it downfield a little bit. And I think he just needs to take less shots or less chances, I should say. And just that's how I feel. And I don't know if he will, because Phil doesn't come across as that kind of guy. He's just so fiery and competitive, which we love, but it might be to a fault at this point in his career.
Yeah. And I mean, like we're saying, they could be some tough games, them playing Tennessee, the Texans.
Yeah, it's not an easy division.
Yeah, and if he's in some tough, tight games, he may be trying to force it too much and then turning the ball over, which wouldn't bode well for playing any of these guys. But we'll see how it works out.
Yeah. Definitely fun to watch, and I hope my boy Deshaun gets it done. I hope Kenny Stills catches 25 touchdowns this season with everybody being gone and hurt. But who really knows? You could tell me at the end of the season, you could say any one of those three teams won the division, and I won't be surprised. You could tell me that three of those teams made the playoffs, won't be surprised. You could tell me only one of those teams made the playoffs, and I won't be surprised.
Anything can happen.
Literally in that division, anything could, for sure.
So what was your official pick to win the division? Now I went with Tennessee.
So I'm going Tennessee.
Okay.
10 wins. Colts. I'm going to say Tennessee 10 wins, Colts 10 wins. Tennessee gets the tiebreaker, and then you're going to have Houston at 9 wins. And I hope you're on board. I want to do a playoff prediction show, because what else are we doing right now? So we'll do that sometime this summer before the season. But I think the Texans, this isn't my official, but the Texans could be that first 7 seed that we see in the AFC. That's how I feel.
Okay. Yeah. So we have it shaken out the same way. I haven't figured out playoffs just yet. But yeah, it's a lot of wins to go around, but we'll see. Yeah. I think there's going to be a pretty clear bottom of the AFC. We haven't got to the AFC East yet, which I think could still be sort of a mess. So
there to me, the AFC East is like the AFC South, but worse. Any one of those teams could win the division. Serious. I legitimately think any one of those teams, including Miami, could win the division, including the Patriots, but they're gonna win it at 9-7 or 8-8, and you would like to see the Bills win it, but who really knows, you know?
Bro, I don't know, man. People have the Bills winning 12 games, and I just
and honestly, if the Jets don't take a step forward and the Dolphins don't take a step forward and the Patriots go to 8-8, you could see that kind of thing happen, Yeah. So
but we'll see. Not to get ahead of ourselves. But all right, fans. Hey, this is gonna wrap it up, this episode. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for joining us. Hey, as always, reach out to us, social media, leave a comment, leave a like. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. Whether it's iTunes, Apple Play, Spotify, whatever. We just love having you guys, love doing this, and we're just excited for the season. So next week we will hit the NFC South, which should be an exciting division as well. Yeah.
It's we got some good stuff coming up. NFC South. We're going to talk about Tampa Bay. I saw it. Someone said it was the Tampa Bay Gronkateers. That's the new licensed name. So tune in next time. Going to be fun. We're going to hit some good stuff.
All right.